come here to chew bubble gum and kick ass. And I'm all out of bubble.
Woo-ho, here we are and here we go. Stand by. We're on. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Belly up to the bar, we've kept you seated, and it's great to see you back. Blaine is going to be your bartender tonight. He pours with the best of them. The lava lamp is indeed lighted to my left, your right. If you happen to be watching on YouTube, go to the SHR Media channel on YouTube. You can watch what's going on right now live. Or you can go to Facebook. Go to the SHR Media page on Facebook. You can watch all this live as well. Why wouldn't you? With all this political buttery goodness that's going to be going on tonight, OMG, do we have a lot of good stuff. We're going to have the underground professor, Dr. Michael Jones, and I have a topic lined up for that. And later on in the show, about 9:30 Pacific, 12:30 Far Eastern Time, and about 19:23 and 105 seconds in Bolivian time, we're going to be talking to Carrie Baxter Donovan. And I think she might have something to say about Steve Bannon. Matter of fact, I think she may have interviewed Steve Bannon. I'd like to hear about that. Welcome to everybody in chat. Welcome to Mary Brockman in chat. Hello, Josie Joe in chat. Dave Milner is in chat. One viewer is in chat. Thanks for being here so early, folks. By the way, we all know that Mary Brockman has her very own chair. How do you know it's her chair? Because it's got her name embroidered right on the back. Can't beat that, not with a stick. Anyway, tonight, I don't believe we're going to be talking about anything NFL. And at this point, probably lots of people are going, thank you, BZ. Thank you ever so kindly for making sure that there's no more NFL crap. And to that I say, boy, it's about time. Luckily, timing, speaking of time, timing is everything. Because if I'm not mistaken, we do have now over the telephone, live and direct from Tejas, Texas, a state...
Yeehaw.
A state that could be independent in and of itself. We have the underground professor, none other than Dr. Michael Jones. And good evening to you, sir. How are you?
Doing well. I'm smoking a stogie, and I'm sitting in my Tahoe talking to you. Couldn't get better.
Wait a minute. You're smoking a stogie and sitting in your Chevy Tahoe.
That's right. I was driving over to my girlfriend's, and I'm sitting out here in the Tahoe. It's misting outside, a little drizzle rain, and it's cool for a change. And I just thought, you know, I'm going to enjoy a stogie and talk to my friend BZ from the left coast and enjoy it for a few minutes.
And you're actually getting rain.
Yes, believe it or not. And it's cool. It'll be down in the 70s tonight, you know, like 78, but tomorrow it'll be like a high of 80, 81. And so I'll take that.
Yeah, no kidding. That's
we have 2 whole weeks of fall each year, and so I'm really looking forward to it.
Okay, but it hasn't started yet. Is that what you're saying?
Well, technically it started last Friday, but it was 100 degrees, so I don't know if that counts.
Well, don't feel so bad, because here in Sacramento, let's see, last Friday it was about 93, 95, right around in there. So we weren't that far back from you.
Yeah. Sounds good to me. Sorry about the noise. I'm rolling up the windows.
That's okay. That's all right. So, folks, live and direct from Texas and live and direct from a Chevy Tahoe, we have Dr. Michael Jones, a constitutional scholar. And tonight, I already threw this out. And I wanted to ask you about basically how the Constitution is crafted in terms of negative versus positive rights. And a lot of people don't understand that particular concept in the Constitution. Maybe I was hoping that you might be able to elucidate folks as to the difference between negative rights in the Constitution, positive rights that people seem to assume are in there.
Well, yeah, I forget his name. There was a professor, and I forgot what decade it was now, 70s, 80s, 90s, something like that. This professor came up with this idea that there are negative and positive rights. And he coined the terms.
Okay.
And basically what he's saying is that, and it became really famous when Obama complained that the Constitution limited him because it was just chock full of negative rights. And he was upset about that.
Okay.
Okay, now, the major difference between a positive and a negative right is that in order to have a positive right, other people have to do something for you. Okay, like say the Second Amendment says that Congress shall make no law with regards to restricting my rights to guns. Okay, well, I have a right to defend myself and to be armed, and it requires no one to do anything. If I want to exercise that right, I merely need to go and purchase myself a weapon or to build my own, whichever. And there you go. I have a weapon and I'm exercising my right to carry it. Now, you hear today that people make the claim that we have a right to health care. Well, in order to have a right to health care, someone's going to have to pay for that.
Yes.
Okay. And so you have to go get a doctor that's willing to treat you free or to get paid by the government or some other entity, as opposed to, acquiring it yourself and paying for it yourself. So that, to me, that's been, in my life, a test of whether it's a right or not. If you have to force somebody else to comply, then that's not a right. And no right can violate another right. For instance, my right to bear arms will never infringe upon your rights at all, any of them, at all, ever. And the only way it would ever come to play is, like, say you broke into my house at 2 a.m. Well, you forfeited your rights to protect yourself and to have a reasonably safe body and not get shot by me. You have those reasonable expectations as long as you comply with the law and you obey them. But if you violate the law, natural or legislative, then you run the risk of having, yourself full of lead poisoning from my weapon. Yeah. So did I confuse anything, or did I explain that? Does that make sense?
Well, yes, it does. Also the part where you weigh a little bit more in death than you did in life.
Yeah, that's right, by a few ounces. And but you see, my right to bear arms can never infringe upon anybody's rights. All right, with this exception, and this is it. It's, for instance, say I'm concealed carry, and I go to your house, and you don't want people to have a weapon. All right, you don't want them to have a gun on them. Well, that's your castle, and that's your property. That gives you property rights right there.
Right.
And that's your rules. So I have a right to bear arms, but I don't have a right to be on your property. And so if you tell me I can't have my gun on your property, I have to make a choice. Either I surrender my weapon or I violate your rules, or I just don't go onto your property. Those are my choices. And so your right to not have a gun on your property has not been violated, and my right to bear arms has not been violated. They can't cross-violate each other unless one of us breaks one of the rules. And so that's a test that I've given called the right nullification test is what I call it.
Okay.
And if you can nullify something, then it's probably not a right. Like, for instance, medical care. If I have a right to medical care, then I have the right to walk into any doctor's office and demand medical care, and he has to give it to me. Now, we're not talking emergency, which was done under legislative law. You know, they passed a statute saying that all emergency rooms have to provide, you know, primary care if you show up and demand it. But you walk into a regular doctor's office or a dentist, you're not going to get that. And that's because you don't have a right to it. And, you know, if you want that service, and you pay for that service. Now, positive rights require somebody to do something for you.
Right.
Is the easiest way to break that down. And a negative right requires nothing because God gave you those rights. You have a right to life. No one has to do anything. Well, and that may be the exception, by the way. Your mom and dad have to go fool around in order for you to have the right to life. But once you've gotten that life, then you have a reasonable expectation to keep it. And so no one has a right to take that life from you. Now, that's the big debate about abortion and everything, is when do you have that right and when can it be enforced? But, you know, today, once you're out of the womb, then you have a reasonable expectation to be able to preserve your life and maintain it. So you have a right to life, you have a right to your property, and you have a right to defend yourself. You have a right to worship God as the way you see fit, with, you know, again, not crazy stuff. You know, we're not talking about dancing naked on, you know, the top of the Eiffel Tower, but, you know, and carrying snakes all around you and doing ganja. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about, you know, real religions, accepted, you know, religions, major ones that you have a right, reasonable expectation to be able to worship the God of your choice. These are the kinds of rights that no one has to get involved with or to do anything for you. And, and so there's that. And a negative right and a positive right that's the major differentiation, is that someone has to do something for you versus you don't have to have anybody help you. What else you want to know?
I'm going to throw this out there. First, let me back up just a little bit. I think it would be a very bad thing to do if you were under the influence of ganja and you were on the Eiffel Tower and you were juggling snakes, all of those things at once. You might have your life insurance company want to jump in and say something to you about that. Might not be a good way to continue with this world. But
I've checked. Obamacare does not cover that.
It doesn't cover that scenario.
Sadly.
You know, what number would that be? Because they break all that stuff down into numbers and whatnot. Yeah. So, you know, would you? I guess you'd have to check the box that says other. Doot. There it goes.
It's designated medical code BZ102.
S for snake. Oh, and SET for snake, Eiffel Tower. Hey,
Eiffel Tower.
I've solved the problem right there.
Which is SETI, which, you know, again, there you go.
Right, SETI, the search for extraterrestrial intelligence, because there certainly isn't any on Earth.
Yes.
I believe that the ultimate leftist goal is to try to make federal judges the final arbiter on all issues, kind of great and small. Leftists want to do that. You know, we hear the phrases like living constitution and 21st century constitution, and when I hear those phrases, I have to tell you that all the bells and klaxons go off in my head like that. But let me see if I just to touch base with you, I want to see if I am understanding you properly. Our current constitution frames much of what we value in what we cannot do. In other words, the government cannot engage in unreasonable searches and seizures. It cannot inflict cruel and unusual punishment. So the individual has a right to not be subject to various things and so forth. But our current constitution does not guarantee so-called rights to such things as, like you mentioned, housing, a right to clothing, a right to food, a right to a job. And I would call those rights, and I think you said it in just another way, I would call those rights that place upon the state to obtain the resources from other people to pay for them.
All right. It's exactly what they have to do, which is why the progressive income tax is so heinous. is they take money from you and they give it to somebody else who has not earned it and may or may not deserve it, but that's not even in question. They haven't earned it. It's not their money. And you're being forced to help them out and be charitable whether you want to or not. And, you know, the left calls that charity. The left calls that humane. And I think it's wrong. It's certainly unconstitutional. The thing about the Constitution here, BZ, is this. It does not contain a whole bunch of individual, or it does not contain group rights, period.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
And,
yep.
Yeah, and it does not spend a whole lot of time telling you what citizens can do. Okay? It's mostly focused on this. It's telling government what it can't do. And the reason for this is, as Madison Hamilton eloquently wrote in the Federalist Papers, we require some form of government if we're going to live together in a civil society. And so we place rules on the government, and then we oblige it to live within those rules. And we did for about 150 years until the switch in time saved 9 by the Supreme Court, and they started ruling that Roosevelt and all this New Deal crap, which was completely unconstitutional by any reading of it, they switched the vote in order to preserve the Supreme Court's 9 justices. And then, you know, Katie barred the door. The rest of it was, you know, just going downhill on us from there. So what it spends most of its time is telling government what it can't do to protect us. And that's the primary focus of the Bill of Rights. It's not listing my rights. It's not giving me rights either.
Right.
It's simply saying these are things that the government can't mess with. And it also tells the government what it can do. It lists, for instance, 7 enumerated powers of Congress.
Okay.
Yes, 7. That's right. I said 7. You know, but you hear Nancy Pelosi when she's asked what part of the Constitution justified Obamacare, and she said, "Get serious. Ask a serious question." Meaning they have the assumption they can do whatever the hell they want to us because they're in Congress and they're our overlords. And the Constitution is very careful to set up that these people are leaders, not rulers, that they are managers on our behalf because we don't live in a democracy. And I don't care how many times people like Hillary Clinton go on talk shows and say, Trump is not ready for democracy. Well, okay.
Well,
I have no problem with that because I'm not ready for it either.
Right. He isn't. You know? Good. You know, that's true. She said it.
Yep. And we're not a democracy, but that is from the Fabian socialists overtaking of progressivism in our country. They changed the word so that people start using the word democracy. Now, the Founding Fathers used it too, kind of loosely, but they didn't mean it the same way that we are trying to mean it today. And they're trying to establish it in this country as a democracy so that they can justify mob rule, majority rules, as long as the majority rules their way. If it doesn't, then you're a racist, homophobic, you know, misogynist, white, Christian, you know, male, whatever. But the concepts were to limit government because men are no angels and we need government. But it was to remind government that they are temporary holders of power that we cede and give temporarily during each election to government to conduct our business for us. And this is why we're a republic, because we hire people to go and conduct the business of government so that we can live our lives and pursue happiness. And the Constitution is supposed to corral them and establish on paper what they can and cannot do. Of course, their separation of powers, you know, they were supposed to guard their own powers jealously from each other. The courts were supposed to protect us. You know, the executive branch is there to enforce law and to protect us from overreach by Congress, you know, vice versa. And we, the people, were supposed to be involved by voting and by communication with our elected leaders. But mostly we failed to do that. And what we've created now is not leaders but rulers, and they are now controlling us, regardless of what the Constitution says or does. Well, and we've been allowing it over and over and over.
Yes,
with these rules and exceptions, and so there, you know, that's our fault. And the education system was designed by the founding fathers. It was specifically designed to what's the word I want? To propagandize? No, that's not the word. What is it when you brainwash somebody? I can't think of the word. Well, brainwash.
Yeah, brainwash is perfect.
Yeah. The original idea of education was to brainwash Americans into distrusting government and keeping an eye on them, and to educate them so that they knew what their rights were and what the government's role was. And when the Fabian socialists started taking over education, when we'll just call them progressives now, but when the progressives started taking over education, they changed the role of education into brainwashing people into trusting government and looking to government as a solution and answer for all problems at any level, and to not know their rights and privileges as citizens so that they would not know when they've lost them. And I would have to say that they had been highly successful at achieving this academically.
Now, you called some folks, and I'd like to see if you can define this for me, because honestly, I do not know, which is why I'm asking.
Hey, John. Hold on 1 second. John.
We'll
wait. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You mentioned the word Fabian socialists.
Radio, right? Yes. Uh-huh.
So what is a Fabian socialist? Say hi to John for us, too, by the way.
Hey, John. Everybody on the radio is saying, hey. That's my girlfriend's uncle. I'm just handing him a bag of cookies to run upstairs.
Chocolate chip, I hope.
Fabian socialists came from Europe, and they're basically socialists, as the name implies. Right now I just had a brain fart on why it's Fabian, but I can't remember. I just had a complete brain lock. But they were pushing their socialized agendas in Europe, and were very successful. I mean, look at it. Post World War II, especially. The parties of Churchill lost, right, and Labor won, and it moved into a socialist paradise. Soviet Union was created, and of course prior to, but still, all of that is part of that. And so they came over to America. There was a time before World War II that it was very, very. It was a fad to be socialist, and the only reason that America stopped liking socialism because of the Nazis, which are socialists, made it seem bad. And then, the communists started doing horrendous things. And so a lot of Americans abandoned it and instead treated them as the enemy of freedom, which they are. But the socialists kept working at it, and they became part of both political parties. Today, we skip through time. Today, what we have, we call them the establishment in either party. The progressives are pretty much, 95% of the Democrat Party and 20-30% of the Republican Party. However, they constitute a much more deeper impact to Republicans over the fact that most of the leadership of the Republican Party is socialists. They're Fabian socialists or progressives. And the idea is that they were going to go into both political parties so that no matter which party was in power, socialism would always continue to march forward and not lose any ground. Like in other places where the Tories would win, and then socialism would come to a screeching halt for a while. In America, it just when Republicans are in power, socialism progresses at a slower pace. That's all. And look at what McConnell and Ryan and those idiots are doing to this country, and McCain and everybody. And the proof's right there.
Oh yeah, don't think we're not going to talk about that after a few more minutes. Let me throw something out to you. And I'm curious if you think that this is sort of the way that things are going. I'm going to sort of theorize that leftists want to enable a sort of a solid privileges or immunities clause, which becomes open-ended, and therefore it becomes susceptible to interpretation by all of their little pre-chosen federal judges. So I like to say, okay, do the logical extension, and to me that's this. They're going to attempt to create new rights, which their goal is, in my estimation, to guarantee social or economic equality or justice. And that's nothing but, as far as I'm concerned, the doors being opened wholesale to people taking your possessions, your property, and redistributing everything that you once owned to everyone else as seen fit by your government. Does it seem to you that we're moving that direction?
Yeah, we're slouching there. The goal of progressives is to remove the Constitution because it's an impediment to them.
Yep.
It is completely antithetical to everything they stand for.
Yep.
And
completely
for
agree.
And for a long time, I had a very hard time accepting my own conclusions that they want to overthrow our government and establish a new one. It just seemed incredible to me that anybody would ever want that, but they do. There's always a group of people who think they know better how to rule everybody else, and if we would just listen to them, everybody could be singing Kumbaya, and we would all be equal and all be affluent. Although history always shows that only those leaders are affluent and everybody else is equal in misery. And history is replete with that. It cannot work because people are people. We're flawed. We're fallen biblically, and until we're raised again in the second coming of Christ, we're not going to be able to attain anything that they think they can obtain. But they have to overthrow our government in order to establish one, and I think that almost everything that they do is designed to create chaos, to bankrupt us,
Agreed.
And to put us in a position that eventually we're going to beg them to save us. And then they'll be ready to step in and create a new form of government and replace the one we have. And we're all going to be sitting here scratching our rears thinking, how did this happen so fast? How is this always ready? And how did we let this happen?
Yeah.
And the simple fact is we will be the architects of our own doom, just like Abraham Lincoln, declared, and we're doing it.
Frog meat, slowly boiling pot. We're going to have to hit a break here in a second. But, Dr. Michael Jones, tell folks where you can be found, where you can be read, and you're going to be on the radio in the future, sir.
Yes. Matter of fact, I've been making arrangements. I'm redoing the office. And the only thing that's keeping me from it is the fact that I'm not getting off work and home before 7 or 8 o'clock every night.
Okay.
But it looks like things are calming down, and I really, really, really hope to be on the radio very soon. And I may just have to switch some days up. Instead of doing the days I want, I may start going back to the old Sunday radio shows and stuff when, I knew I could do it. But I will post that on the undergroundprofessor.us.
Okay.
Undergroundprofessor.us or Twitter @undergroundprof. I also Periscope with that same handle @undergroundprof, PROF. I ran out of letters. And we have a YouTube channel too, the Underground Professor. We're gonna Facebook Live. We got a whole bunch of stuff going on. We're about to start the Minuteman Minutes. I've made a couple, and I'm tweaking them, and then we're going to actually introduce the Minuteman Minutes, which are 1 to 2, 3 minute little things, like over the Second Amendment or something. Something that interests me, and I'll teach you a little bit about it. And we're about to start doing some things like talking a little bit about the history of Jefferson and Washington and these guys, because people don't know who they are and what's going on. And this is why we are now having a debate about taking their names off of schools and memorials and everything. The first Minuteman Minute we're doing is about George, which is the little black
the statue.
looking guy
Right,
that
the statue.
For tying horses to it, right? So that's our first one. We're going to explain the real history of that and why you're not a racist for having it.
No, and you're not, and you explained it here.
Yes, and so we're going to do that on video and everything. That's my first one because, I think people are a little familiar with it that know me, and it would be a good way to introduce me to others that don't, and maybe it'll get their attention. And I'll be doing TV with Ken, the Exceptional Conservative, on Friday nights, and 8 to 10 p.m. God's time, Central Time.
Okay. Right, God's time. There you go.
Yeah, God's time. So there you go, undergroundprofessor.us. Yeah.
Great. Outstanding, folks. We have been talking to the underground professor himself, Dr. Michael Jones. We're going to take a break, and please come back. Boy, have I got some great stuff for you. Come back, folks.
See you next week.
Conservative media.
Thank you, sir.
Done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show. Also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. You didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying cow for the stupid promo.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
The bloviating Zeppelin. He's big-footed enough radio shows to last a lifetime, courtesy of Sean, Clint, Ken, and Jersey Joe. Now it's time for him to waddle on his own 2 feet via the glorious SHR Media. Gird thy loins for the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, coming soon to Ossicles near you. Excelsior.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, you're listening to the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon, live and direct here on the SHR Media Network. It is September 28th, 2 more days to go in the month. And the older you get, holy crap, the faster time moves. It seems 2 more days till the end of September. It's already fall. Pretty astounding, if you ask me. I have to play a cut for you now. There was an unusual event that occurred in Congress where there was, for once, just a little bit of unity today. And that's when Steve Scalise returned to Congress himself, to the House of Representatives, and that was after that terrible GOP baseball practice shooting, where the one guy actually went directly after Scalise. And Scalise, because he's a member of some very powerful groups, some committees, he actually had protection. He had 2 officers who were there, a black dude and a white chick, and they shot and killed the particular assailant, and they were shot themselves. Both of those officers were shot themselves. And that is an incredible testimony to the fortitude of those folks, because not only did they end up protecting Congressman Scalise's life, but all the rest of the other GOP representatives and individuals who happened to be right there on the field. And here's Steve Scalise coming in on crutches. He refused to come in a wheelchair, and he refused to come in on a scooter. And there were some actual good words to be said about him and some things he said himself.
To mark the return to the chamber of our dear friend and colleague from Louisiana, Mr. Steve Scalise. The chair now proudly asks, for what purpose does the gentleman from Louisiana seek recognition?
To speak out of order, Mr. Speaker.
Stop. I'm going to point this out only once. Everyone is standing except whom? Who is not standing and applauding right now? Well, that's right. It's Sheila Jackson Lee.
Wow. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. You have no idea how great this feels to be back here at work in the People's House. As you can imagine, these last 3.5 months have been pretty challenging times for me and my family. But if you look at the outpouring of love, of warmth, of prayer, my gosh, Jennifer and I have been overwhelmed with all of that outpouring, and it's given us the strength to get through all of this and to get to this point today. I want to specifically mention Crystal Griner and David Bailey.
And those were the officers who protected Congressman Scalise and everyone there in the ballpark that morning. Everyone stands up except
and let me tell you, if they didn't act so quickly, and even after being shot both themselves, continued to engage the shooter and ultimately got him down, which not only saved my life, but saved the life of a lot of other people that are here in this chamber today. Crystal couldn't be with us today, but David Bailey is with us. David, you are my hero. You saved my life. And everything. Thank you so much. Is an event like this going to really change that? And the first thing I can tell you is, yes, it changed me, but not in the ways you might think. It's only strengthened my faith in God, and it's really crystallized what shows up as the goodness in people. I got to see that goodness in people. And so while some people might focus on a tragic event and an evil act, to me, all I remember are the thousands of acts of kindness and love and warmth that came out of this and kept me going through all of it. And again, just re-emphasize just how wonderful most people are and how much compassion there is out there. God bless each and every one of you, and God bless the United States of America.
Perfectly said. Absolutely perfectly said. So we're going to transition from that into, I've got some interesting audio cuts to play for you, and it's under the guise of,
It's time for happy stories and good times.
Oh, and here's a happy story. I love this one. This was great. This is out of Fox News, and the headline goes like this. Antifa leader, teacher Ivan Felarka, arrested at, you're going to love this, you're going to love this, arrested at empathy tent in Berkeley brawl. A middle school teacher turned Antifa leader was among the 4 people arrested after opposing political groups clashed Tuesday inside a so-called empathy tent at the University of California, Berkeley. Ivan Felarka, a 47-year-old teacher at Berkeley's Martin Luther King Jr. Middle School, was charged with battery and resisting arrest after a scuffle broke out at a rally held in response to student organizers canceling a planned Free Speech Week. Hey, there you go. Berkeley cancels a Free Speech Week. The home of free speech is now the home of blow me, you can't have any free speech at all. That would have featured, by the way, right-wing firebrand Milo Yiannopoulos. I played his stuff here. People don't face Milo because he thinks on his feet too damn fast for most leftists. 3 men were also arrested on charges including possession of body armor, carrying a banned weapon. Now, this is in an empathy tent. What do you need body armor in an empathy tent for, I ask you? Carrying a banned weapon and participating in a riot. The protest was led by Joey Gibson, leader of a group. And there you go, leader of a group. This is the best part. The empathy tent was reportedly in place to offer protesters a calm place to unwind amid the chaos around them. But the tent ultimately offered little respite and nearly toppled during clashes between conservative students and leftist activists. The Los Angeles Times reported an empathy tent. We need an empathy tent. But wait, do you ever suspect, or perhaps I should rephrase this a little bit, do you ever hope that leftists turn upon themselves and attempt to eat their young? You're going to have to listen to this cut very carefully, because there are some very insightful and yet some very cutting things said in this. But you're about to hear, this is great, you're about to hear Antifa eating its young. Oh, who are they going to eat? Oh, they're going to eat a Caucasoid because he's white. She's telling this guy who's white, if you're really an ally, you just punch allies. You risk going to jail for the fact that they have the platform. You don't need, don't even give them the satisfaction of allies. Just punch, yeah. She says, don't even give them the satisfaction of, yeah, just punch, yeah. And he asks, are you seriously? I'm seriously telling you to do the work, yeah. Dude, he says, dude, you have no idea. I put in the work. And she says, punch a Nazi. Stop yelling about it. Be about this shit if you're a white ally. I am, he says. I've been fucking fighting for like 3 months. I put myself at risk for all of us all the time. Well, to prove it, he said somebody threw a fucking megaphone at my head. Look, he's got the battle scars to prove it. She says, oh, you're not an ally, though. Punch a Nazi. She says to him, the performance shit is done. She says, punch Nazis, punch them. Beat their fucking ass if you're an ally. To the white guy, who is a member of Antifa. Do it, she says. Be about this shit. Uh-oh, he said, you're pathetic. Uh-oh. He says, I was here last time. Fucking people fought, and I fought back too. Apparently that's not good enough for her. Did you hear what she said? She said, you're still white. You're still responsible. This is your fault. You're inherently racist. You are inherently racist. Now, he's a member of Antifa. And see, we're cutting across all the bullshit with this, because now you see the bottom line to Antifa. Antifa is thank God, Antifa is starting to consume itself. And pretty soon, it may be, Antifa may be the land of VFW, very few whites. It's in your blood, it's in your DNA. It's in your blood, it's in your DNA. Ooh, that makes me feel good. This made me feel good, too. This was an article that you may or may not have heard about. And I bring it up here because it starts out really positive, and then when it gets into the hands of leftists, well, guess what? It goes negative in about 2.35 seconds. It's about Frank, who decided that one day he was going to mow the lawn. And so it started with a letter to the White House, which said, "Dear Mr. President, it'd be my honor to mow the White House lawn some weekend for you. Even though I'm only 10, I'd like to show the nation what young people like me are really for. I admire your business background. I've started my own business. I've been mowing my neighbors' lawns for some time. Please see the attached flyer." He says, "Here's a list of what I have, and you are free to pick whatever you want." And the list is power mower, push mower, and weed whacker. And he says, "I can bring extra fuel for the power mower and charged batteries for the weed whacker." And he says, "I will do this at no charge. Sincerely, Frank." So 11-year-old Frank from Falls Church, Virginia, comes to the White House about 2 Fridays ago. I think that was the 15th. And he mows the White House lawn.
His name is Frank. He's 11 years old from Falls Church, Virginia. And he might put the National Park Service out of a job keeping the White House grounds maintained. You see, Frank, who also goes by the name FX, he wrote to President Donald Trump offering his lawn mowing services at no charge.
FX, a 10-year-old boy who calls himself FX.
He got national attention last month when White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders read his letter on live television.
Dear Mr. President, it would be my honor to mow the White House lawn for some weekend for you. Even though I'm only 10, I'd like to show the nation what young people like me are ready for. I admire your business background and have started my own business. I've been mowing my neighbors' lawns for some time. Please see the attached flyer. Here's a list of what I have, and you're free to pick whatever you want. Power mower, push mower, and weed whacker. I can bring extra fuel for the power mower and charged batteries for the weed whacker, and he'll do that with no charge.
That's absolutely grand. So the better part of it was this. I wish you could see this. Someday I'll be able to figure out how to put stuff up on YouTube so that you can actually see the video. But as he's mowing the lawn diligently, well, who exits but President Trump? So there's lots of reporters out there, and there's Frank mowing the lawn. And he's got some thick glasses on, and it looks like the lawn itself is actually pretty thick. You can see he's got a Honda power mower, and man, he is concentrating. You can see that the brows are most definitely furrowed on this guy. You can hear the people in the background, the various reporters and whatnot. And now they've got a big view, a big back view of how big that lawn is, and it's actually pretty voluminous. Well, here comes President Trump, and he starts applauding. You can hear him. Great job, Frank. Frank ignores him. Frank just keeps mowing. This is priceless. So Trump backs up so this kid can make a turn with his lawnmower. This is great. Now he fist bumps the kid. His dad comes over. And finally, Frank decides he's going to continue mowing. And then he gets a high five from President Trump. This is classic. Absolutely priceless. So they're chatting back and forth now. And so finally, there he goes. He turns off the power mower. And he and the president are having a little chat.
Dad. Can we get a photo? Can we get a photo?
Future of the country right there. You're lucky. That's the real future of the country. Way to go. So what do you want to do when you grow up?
Become a son, Frank.
A Navy SEAL. Well, he'll make it. There's no doubt about it. Huh?
Frank wants to be a Navy SEAL when he grows up. That was classic. Absolute classic. That's a good time. Okay, so... Oh, but wait, you can't let... The leftists cannot leave something as simple and honest as this, they can't allow it to stand. Could it? No, they can't do that. There were these responses among many. Here's one. These are tweets. So, and you knew this was going to come, but I'm going to read it to you because this shows you, this illustrates how extremely ridiculous leftists are. They just can't enjoy the moment. Do any of these people have a life or have any fun at all? Here's a tweet from Paul. I didn't know that the White House advocates unpaid child labor. Casey Thomas Snyder said, LOL, still employing child labor even in the White House. Guess it's not limited to the 6-year-olds that make his and Ivanka's clothes. Here's another tweet from Gary Legume. Impeach him. Trump violates child labor law for photo op. And then there's another tweet from a guy named FLP. He says, does Ivanka know about this? She has a position for him in a sweatshop. Jock says, so a kid is taking away some adult's full-time job. How is it that he's allowed on White House grounds and other people are not? They don't even get it. They don't get it in the fucking slightest. They cannot allow even a moment like this to occur for Trump in the White House. Now, here's an interesting article from Twitchy.com. Why, and it's a damn good point, why Trump won. Former New York Times labor reporter thinks boy mowing White House lawn sends a bad signal. As Twitchy reported Friday, an 11-year-old boy from Virginia who had volunteered to mow the White House lawn did exactly that this week, pushing a mower around the Rose Garden while the press took pictures. Frank also met President Trump and was invited to the Oval Office itself. To us, it was a feel-good story of the week, but we were warned. We compiled quite a few tweets from critics, but it seems fitting that the New York Times former labor reporter should be given special consideration. He thought it was a great display of patriotism and the work ethic that made America great, right? No. Steve Greenhouse on Twitter says, not sending a great signal on child labor, minimum wage and occupational safety. Trump White House lets a 10-year-old volunteer mow its lawn. So Greenhouse has written a lot about kids being hurt by machinery. So that's his gig. That's his shindig. It's a good thing then, don't you think, that no parent in America is going to decide that they're going to let a child under 21 operate something as dangerous as a push mower out in the backyard, let alone pay them an allowance rather than an hourly minimum wage. So this guy doesn't know when to stop. So Stephen Greenhouse sends another tweet, and it's this. What this kid wants to do is noble, but sorry, I'm mindful of problems. I've written lots about child labor and kids being hurt by machinery. So he sends a link to this. And this is an article from the I'm not kidding. He actually went here because of a kid mowing the lawn. It's an article from the Amputee Coalition, whose headline says, lawnmower accidents cause needless amputations. More than 600 children undergo mower-related amputations each year. That's where they went. That's where the minds go, leftists, when they do that. So, okay, without a doubt, right? Parents, it's time to start dressing your children. This is what you need to do. You need to start dressing your children in gigantic Nerf suits, okay, before you send them out the door and pat them on the poo-poos and they go out the door. Okay, wait. Better yet, keep them inside the house wearing the Nerf suits. Who knows what could occur when they leave your home and go out on their own? Oh, wait. Don't most accidents occur in the home? Oh no! Now, what should Gaups do? That it's a conundrum. They're befuddled. If you don't believe child labor is dangerous, you got to go to this website and look about. And it's on my blog. Look about amputees, and these guys can't help but go there. From kids injured by power mowers. Okay, but if you thought that Greenhouse was going to stop with that, oh, no. You're way damn wrong. Stephen Greenhouse said another tweet out and said, while many applaud the noble Frank, here it is, we're going to throw another association in here. The American Academy of Pediatrics says no one under 12 should operate a power mower. Then he sends a link to this site, whose headline says, lawnmower injuries send 13 children to the emergency department every day. Every day, children are dying because of power mowers. On average, every day in the United States, 13 children receive emergency treatment for a lawnmower-related injury. That adds up to almost 4,800 children injured each year. Okay, take a big cup of shut the fuck up and move along. But, oh no, run for your lives, okay? Briggs & Stratton, Toro, Honda, Craftsman, they all exist for one thing as far as leftists are concerned. Do you know what that is? They all exist to create child-eating power machines. That's what they do. Evil corporatists do nothing but injure children and slash off their legs all the time. Can you believe this? What started out as an innocent trying to make a point and letting a kid come to the White House, you heard that a leftist said in a tweet, that child is taking over the job of basically the White House gardener. Oddly enough, in that video, you couldn't see it. The White House gardener was there, and he was the one that actually provided the power mower and the gas. Yeah, because that kid is going to be back every day to continue to mow the lawn. You duplicitous pieces of fuck. How can you live like this? In your world, everything is bad. Everything is evil. None of you have a damn sense of humor. None of you. Mel Brooks said recently, I was going to save this for later. I may as well talk about it now. Mel Brooks said, and rightly so, comedy is dead in America. Comedy is absolutely dead in America. Jerry Seinfeld has said the exact same thing. He doesn't go to college campuses anymore because anything and everything that he says that he thinks is funny, that most people who are not raving leftists think is funny, he can't go there anymore. He can't tell jokes. Mel Brooks well knows that he could no more make, Blazing Saddles in this kind of an environment anymore than the Man on the Moon. And you're missing out on comedy. And folks, leftists, people like that, I'm sorry, you are missing out on life. You're brain dead. And that's where leftists go when something as sweet as this occurs in front of their faces.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads radio show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. You didn't build that.
a team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying coffee, stupid bro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, cause I'm drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on SHR Media TheSackheadsRadio.com.
The bloviating Zeppelin. He's big-footed enough radio shows to last a lifetime, courtesy of Sean, Clint, Ken, and Jersey Joe. Now it's time for him to waddle on his own 2 feet via the glorious SHR Media. Gird thy loins for the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Coming soon to ossicles near you. Excelsior.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Folks, it is Thursday, September 28th, the year of our Lord 2017. We had the underground professor, Dr. Michael Jones, on earlier to talk about various constitutional elements. Tonight it was about positive versus negative rights. By the way, just a reminder that at the bottom of the hour, we got Carrie Baxter Donovan, who's going to be coming in, and I hope she might have something to say, perhaps about Steve Bannon. She said she was going to attempt to try to meet him. Well, I guess maybe we'll find out whether or not she did. In the meantime, I discovered an article by Kurt Schlichter. Now, I've read an article by him before, and he writes some pretty insightful stuff. It turns out he writes at townhall.com. They primarily publish his work. If perhaps you were wondering why it is that the GOP seems to be betraying us left and right, I think in about 3 or 4 pages, he's nailed it. And so I do this when someone writes an article that has such incredible insight and yields a little bit of an epiphany that I'm gonna read it now. It's exquisite, absolutely exquisite. It did appear at townhall.com, and if you guys go there and want to read along for a while, let's see. The article is called "Conservative Inc., as in Incorporated, is being replaced by us militant normals." Uh-oh. You can see things are going to go bad because he starts out using the word normal itself. And he starts, I guess now we're not supposed to be fighting culture wars anymore. Man, it's so hard to keep up with these ever-changing new rules. I'm old enough to remember way back to 2016, before Trump got nominated, and I could have sworn Conservative Inc., as in Incorporated, was gung-ho for the whole culture war thing. But then Trump actually fought it, taking on the big, soft target that is the spoiled, semi-literate athletes who like to rub their contempt for the flag we love in our faces in the guise of wokedness. Now we suddenly discover that fighting back is horribly uncouth and déclassé and, oh, well, I would have thought from all those cruise panels and how our crumbling culture is slouching toward Babylon, and the need to resist the liberal onslaught, that maybe we ought to actually resist the liberal onslaught. But see, that was my mistake. I took it seriously when Conservative Inc. promised to fight the leftist blitzkrieg against normal Americans. It was all a scam, a lie, a pose for us rubes. The true cons didn't actually mean it. There's a lot of that there's a lot of that not meaning it going on at the GOP right now. Exhibit A, people brought this up before, Exhibit A, John McCain. Didn't the underground professor talk about John? I believe he did. Who ran ads touting how he was leading the way in opposing Obamacare, only to give it aid and comfort when someone in the White House would actually sign its repeal. He's the guy the establishment designated to lose to Barack Obama in 2008. And he was sure up to that task. But in retrospect, thank goodness, because McCain's inevitable presidential betrayal of conservatives by breaking his word then and treating GOP voters like he treated his first wife, would have done exponentially more damage to conservatism than Trump being prevented from keeping his word today ever could. It's so good to know that despite his wonderful, close, awesome friend humiliating him while lying to Arizona's voters, Lindsey Graham is still the Blue Falcons' buddy. No hard feelings. There used to be a thing called conservatism, and I knew it pretty well, since I was part of it for about a third of a century. But conservatism changed, becoming less about principles, though he calls them wuss-cons, though the wuss-cons never shut up about them, and more about money-grabbing, navel-gazing, and intellectual onanism. By the way, if you don't know what onanism is, that's masturbation, just another word. It's in the dictionary. Actual Republican voters, actual normal Americans, well, they become sort of beside the point in the tumbler-clinking world of the John Boehner cons, and to the corporate-friendly compassion cons, who put the interests of everyone else, including the act of lovers, ahead of the GOP voters who voted the establishment in. Conservatism forgot about the real-world conservatives we expected to line up behind us. While we were talking about free trade, we were ignoring that GOP voter who fought in Fallujah, came home, got a job building air conditioners, raised a family, and then one day watched the video of the oh-so-sorry CEO who looked remarkably like Mitt Romney, because all these guys look remarkably like Mitt Romney, sadly informing his beloved employees that their jobs were getting shipped to Oaxaca. And our response to the 58-year-old Republican voter who asked us how he was going to keep paying for his mortgage and his kid in college, the response was pretty much, well, that's how free enterprise works. Read some Milton Friedman and go learn coding or HTML. Go away. Well, that's not a response. Not for a political party that requires people to actually vote for it. That's an abdication. But what did Conservative Inc. care? Priorities. There's this new tapas place in Georgetown everybody is talking about. The other night, my buddy from the Liberty Freedom Eagle Institute for Liberty, Freedom, and Eagles saw Lawrence O'Donnell there getting hammered. Woohoo! How about the guy who wanted to be a roofer in Fortuna, but he couldn't because the contractors were only hiring illegals? What was our answer to him? Oh, well, the big corporate donors need their serfs, and if some pack of tatted-up MS-13 dreamer, they gang rape your daughter, well, that's just the price we're willing to pay. They try to crush our religion, and Conservative Inc. cowers because Apple's CEO might say mean things. Just bake the cake, they say. It's not worth the fight. They demand our tax money to kill babies, and Conservative Inc. passes the spending bills. Gosh, we can't risk the WAPO saying we're mean. They diss our national anthem. We react, and Conservative Inc. wags its soft, spindly fingers. So very unpresidential, my word! Bill Kristol, that's me. Conservatism has become a racket, and everything happening now is a result of its members hoping to wait out Trump and the demand for change that he represents. Maybe if they do nothing but say all the right things, we normals will get tired and go back to our jobs and keep providing those votes and renting those cruise cabins, but that's not happening. We aren't going away. Business as usual is over. We aren't just giving up, just tossing away our country and submitting to the ruling class. We were nice with the Tea Party. Trump's not as nice. What's coming after is going to be much, much less nice. Thanks, Kurt. What's coming after is militant normalcy, the not-so-polite demand that the lackwits and failures who style themselves as our betters stop dumping on us normal Americans who work hard and play by the rules. Gosh, now that sounds familiar, like it used to be a winning electoral recipe. If only I could remember where I heard it before and specifically from whom. Well, okay, who are the normals? The Americans who built this country and defended it. When you eat, it's because a normal grew the food and another normal trucked it to you. When you aren't murdered in the street or you don't speak German, it's because a normal with a gun made those things not happen. We normals don't want to rule over others. We don't obsess about how you live your life. But also, we don't want to be compelled to signal our approval or pick up the tab. We are every color and we are every creed. Though when someone who is incidentally a member of some other group aligns with normals, he, she, we lose that identity. The left drums normals who are black out of its definition of black. Just as normal women get drummed out of womanhood and normal gays get drummed out of gayhood. In a way, the left is making e pluribus unum a reality again. To choose to be normal is to choose to reject silly identity group identification and unite. Instead of saying normal Americans, can you just say Americans? Note that while leftists rail against the term normals, when I use it on Twitter, that is, when Kurt Schlichter uses it on Twitter, the reactions are always delightful. They will never ever demand to be counted as one. That's because they hate normal Americans, wanting us enslaved or dead. How do I know? Oh, they tell me that on Twitter again and again and again and again. Militant normality is growing as normals awaken to the indisputable truth of our enemy's implacable hatred for us and everything we hold dear. Well, like America. The sign of moron sports ball players disrespecting normals warms libs' frigid little hearts, and make no mistake that this is aimed straight at us, not at some musical number. All these cultural aggressions are aimed at us, from demanding you obey their pronoun proclamations to requiring your daughter share a toilet with a dude in a skirt. This is how they seek to break us. That's why the shameful abdication of conservative ink in the cultural light, in the cultural fight, is both important and irrelevant. It demonstrates that the first loyalty of many folks in the conserva racket is to the ruling caste to which they belong. And it also demonstrates that these wimps' absence from the battle means nothing. So, what'll happen? We'll fight this fight ourselves, thanks. Sometimes we'll fight it by rediscovering the joy of a late evening without hack TV comics lecturing us about healthcare. Hey, Jimmy Kimmel had a sick son, and that unusual and unique experience means he has unusual and unique insights. Sometimes we'll hit the remote and spend our Sunday not watching Future Vegetables, hating on our country when they aren't smashing into each other. Sometimes we'll mock these idiots mercilessly. We may even launch a conservative insurgency. And if they keep pushing, getting violent, and trying to strip us of our sacred rights, we might even get more frisky. And then it'll get ugly. Kurt's last paragraph. But we're not giving up, and we're not going to sit back and take it. Militant normalcy is the result of normal people roused to anger and refusing to be pushed around anymore. We prefer a free society based on personal liberty and mutual respect. But if you leftists veto that option, that leaves us either a society where you rule and oppress us, or one where we hold the power. So let me break this down, both for the left and for their fussy Frito-Con enablers. You don't get to win. a very insightful article from Kurt Schlichter. That has to be our clarion call. We can't afford to let these people win, because it's all about, just as the underground professor said, it's all about trying to rid the United States of what made it the nation where everyone wants to go. Every level of civilization in the United States, Western civilization pretty much entirely, Antifa, leftists, Democrats, and now way too damn many Republicans, what I call the establishacks, want to just let this nation go. Why? Especially on the establish side? They've got theirs. And really, I don't think it translates to much more than that. They have theirs. Do you remember what I told you about a week ago? I had what I considered to be a startling revelation, and I called it the DC axiom. And finally, somebody in the media, and I had a clip of it, it was Judge Napolitano, who was weighing in on Jeff Sessions' reasoning for not going after Hillary Clinton. I knew this inherently all along, and I'm sure you did too. It's just that Judge Napolitano had the balls to be able to vocalize what we inherently felt and knew within us, because we knew it's right, it's proper, it's correct, which is why BZ calls it the DC axiom. And what it was essentially is this: people in power, currently, right now, Republicans, people in power are afraid that if they go after the wrong folks, or the wrong set, or the wrong subset, when power flips, and it always flips, that those people who were pursued will go after them. 'Cause nobody's perfect. And for fuck's sake, we sure as hell don't want to turn the DC swamp upside down. They like it just the way it is right now. So now you have a pretty good idea of why it is that things are not getting done. And as I told you, it's the DC axiom. Now, if I'd been thinking, I would have had that cut by Judge Napolitano up and ready to play to you. Maybe next week, maybe Tuesday. I don't have the ability to get in the confuser right now and do it. And at this point, it's not really pertinent. But the Kurt Schlichter article nails it. That's why I read it to you, because he gives voice to what it is that we inherently know. You go to bloviatingzeppelin.net, and that's the reason you listen to me, weigh in on comments, etc., while you're listening to the show now, live, in podcast, you're in the chat room, is because I state the obvious. Now, it's obvious to you because you have a brain, not obvious to quite a number of other people. But I write on that blog, and it's up on my masthead. It frequently says, I am pushback. And I have trolls. One of my most recent that actually wrote semi-cogent sentences to me in comments, who I am now banned because he's become a pisshead. But at least I let him stand because he didn't say shit and fuck all the time in his comments and make it all about me. The comments generally are all emotional and few facts. But the fact is, we got another 10 minutes. I think I got another story in here. But the fact is, Kurt Schlichter is spot on. We, as a group, conservatives, some Republicans, anymore, damn few in D.C., libertarians, and people of that bent. You know what? We're kind of like the U.S. in 1941. What was it that Yamamoto said about the United States in 1941? He said something similar to after having bombed Pearl Harbor, and we may have our very own Pearl Harbor coming in conservatism. What Admiral Yamamoto said was that, I fear we have awakened a deadly sleeping giant. And to that I say, leftists, anarchists, Democrats, and the GOP establishment hacks, wake up. As a group, let me again state the obvious. We are some of the most committed individuals on the planet. We are some of the most well-armed individuals on the planet. We are some of the most educated people on the planet. We are some of the most practical people on the planet, and even worse, we know how to make things work. We know trades. We know how to build things. We know how to do a myriad of things that leftists don't. And we're really a very tolerant group of people. Leftists don't get it, just like the NFL doesn't get it. Roger Goodell doesn't get it. The owners don't get it. Anarchists don't get it. Antifa doesn't get it. And they won't get it until they get something very, very bad and something perhaps painful rammed up their own arses. Kind of like a white-hot piece of rebar that suddenly goes the wrong place at the right time of day. We are all good people on the conservative side, 99.9% of us. But I'm warning you, Kurt Schlichter warned us on paper in black and white via town hall. And I'm picking up his cause. I knew this was coming. You and I knew this was coming. And if you doubt it's coming, well, here's another thing that conservatives are. Prepared. We can take a lot of crap. But when push comes to shove, and I am very afraid that leftists, Democrats, anarchists, Antifa, they don't know when to stop pushing. And when they've gone too far, there's going to be a reaction. For every action, like one of Newton's laws, for every action, there's going to be an equal and opposite reaction. You keep pushing, and leftists, you're going to see a Newton law enacted by conservatives. I pray it doesn't happen. I really do. Because this is overall a really good nation. It's an amazing experiment in history. A nation unlike any other. And it's lasted since 1776. And yes, it has a history that, yep, we've made some wrong turns along the way. You show me a nation, any nation on this planet, that hasn't. You show me a nation this large that isn't interested in taking the land that we, or in keeping the land that we take. You show me another nation that is willing to go to war for other people to defend other rights, not our own. You show me any other nation that has a foreign graveyard as big as that of Americans on Normandy. You show me that nation. I am pushback. It's coming to a bad, and I'm afraid an abrupt, let's say a mid-course correction. Can it be changed? Well, Kurt Schlichter says, gird your loins, it's a-coming. And I say, gird your loins, It's a coming. Why would you not want to be prepared? Because if it doesn't happen, if some kind of societal upheaval, cataclysm doesn't happen, well, you've expended a few dollars and you can use that stuff later anyway. And you're still going to know how to build things, and you're still going to be a conservative, and you're still going to know how to make things work, and you're still going to pay your taxes, and life will still be fairly decent. The problem with that is that might be coming to an end. I think I've got Mary Baxter Donovan calling in. Hang on just one second. Let's see if that's true. Carrie Baxter Donovan, is that you?
It is. Hello.
Hello. You called a little bit early. I was bloviating like the
did I?
Yeah, like the Zeppelin
Well,
that
I've been
I am, but
listening.
that's okay. That's okay. We'll chat with you. Just be aware that in about 2 minutes, I'm going to have to take a break, and then we'll come back and pretty much we'll have the rest of the show with you, Carrie Baxter
Then I
Donovan.
can jump in with you.
Oh, hell yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, because you know what? We're going to go into the deep end of the pool.
Awesome.
Especially when we come
That's
back.
my favorite place.
I know, especially when we come back from the break. A question for you, Carrie, before we do go to that break. I don't know if you happen to hear the article by Kurt Schlichter that I just read.
Yes, I did.
Basically,
Kurt
is saying, you know what? I think we've been pushed just about enough. Do you have any thoughts on that in the next 2 minutes?
Well, you know, I heard the article. Rush read the article. I heard it, listened to it while I was driving to D.C. And I was just like, I love this guy. I love this article. I love every single word of it. It is exactly what I have been thinking. I wish I were brave enough to have written it. Because he's one of my favorites.
Yep, that was my point.
I heard it. Yeah, and then I heard it, and then I was so excited because a friend of mine who I've known forever since college, she tagged me, and she said, Carrie Donovan, you've got to, this article is all about you. And I felt like I am so proud that people know that those were some of my thoughts. Because I think he nailed it. Just like you said, hit it out of the ballpark. It's perfect. It's so well written. It's what we all are thinking, right?
Well,
great article.
It's exactly what we were saying. And I can't tell you how depressed I am to realize that I've been upstaged by Rush Limbaugh. Okay. This is...
Well, you have better hair. You have a way better beard. I don't think I would watch him. But I'm fascinated with you and the new lighting and that whole, like, what is that little lamp, that lava lamp thing you've got going?
That's my lava lamp.
I've had that. He's got nothing on you. I don't think he has a lava lamp.
No, but he does have the golden EIB microphone and millions of dollars. Okay. Hey, folks.
It is a good-looking microphone.
It is. It is indeed. Hey, but I got a Shure 55S Classic right here. So anyway, folks.
You look good, too.
Thank you. We've got to go to a break, and we'll be right back. This is the final segment of the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. You're listening to it live and direct on the SHR Media Network. You can watch it live on YouTube, SHR Station, channel I should say, and you can watch it live on Facebook on SHR Media. Don't go away. Last half hour coming right up.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Hey, it's Sean from the Sackheads Radio Show, also one of the owners here at the SHR Media Network. Are you opinionated? Have you ever wanted to do your own show? Have you ever heard somebody like the Sackheads and go, yeah, I could probably do that better? Well, now's your chance. Send me a 5-minute clip at sackheadsradio@gmail.com, and maybe you can be part of the SHR broadcasting team. sackheadsradio@gmail.com.
Times are dark. The people are misled by corrupt politicians, lied to by establishment media, and deceived by the false messages of Islam. A nation looking for direction needs a guide. It needs a man with a cane. I'm Dave Milner. Join me on Spreaker, SHR Media, Pundit Press Radio, and YouTube through the SHR Media page for a different kind of commentary on the unpleasant blind guy. Because the truth is not always pleasant.
In a world controlled by corrupt politicians,
You got a business. You didn't build that.
A team of ordinary men emerge from the ashes to give voice to the voiceless and hope to the hopeless. Sackhead Sean.
Dude, I'm not saying cow for the stupid pro.
Sackhead Clint.
All good friends of ours usually show up drunk.
Also starring Sacco as the producer.
I'm a little bit drunk, I'm a little bit drunk, 'cause I'm drinking, drinking, drinking.
They are the Sackheads Radio Show. Every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Pacific on shrmedia.com.
The bloviating Zeppelin. He's big-footed enough radio shows to last a lifetime, courtesy of Sean, Clint, Ken, and Jersey Joe. Now it's time for him to waddle on his own 2 feet via the glorious SHR Media. Gird thy loins for the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. Coming soon to Ossicles near you. Excelsior.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
And we're back. This is the final segment now of the bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. The final half hour. We heard from the underground professor, Dr. Michael Jones himself. We heard from Kurt Schlichter. We were edumacated by Dr. Jones, the underground professor, and had a great time at it. And we learned that Frank actually pushes a lawnmower, damn him, and that leftists have no sense of humor, and they're going to push to the detriment of themselves. And when I say detriment, yeah, I'm not kidding. I don't think they have any idea really what they're doing. Because we've been taking it for so long, and the GOP now has decided that they're essentially going to side with Democrats and with leftists. That is not a play, GOP. That is what I call sustainable in any fashion whatsoever. But I'll tell you what, let's change gears just a little bit. Carrie Baxter Donovan called in. She is what I term the East Coast political goddess, and she's back on the air in the saloon. And let me see, last time we spoke, you said something about attempting to meet Steve Bannon. Did that occur?
Oh, yes. So I went to D.C. I went all the way out there, and poor Steve Bannon went to the Economic Summit with my friend Raynard Jackson. It was awesome. It was a fantastic event. Unfortunately, Steve was supposed to be there, but his flight got delayed. He was stuck in Alabama. I guess there was a race there or something. So his flight was delayed, and he wasn't able to make it until much later in the day. So they actually rescheduled for a Thursday, and I'm going to go back to D.C. now, and maybe this time I'll get to meet him. So I have still yet to meet Mr. Bannon, even though I'm Steve Bannon fangirl.
Well, and you said you are member number 1, and I think you showed me the certificate that you are member number 1 in the Steve Bannon fan club.
I am. It's true. It's the truth.
But if I'm not mistaken, somewhere in social media, I think I saw a photograph of you with Ken McClinton, and you were dressed to the nines, and you said you either had met or were going to meet somebody whose name escapes me. And whom did you meet?
Was that Corey Lewandowski?
Bingo. Okay, that's the person that you said. Yep.
Right.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. So he gave a great speech, and he's fascinating as well. He probably has his own fangirl, so he's gonna have to get by with somebody else. But he was absolutely fascinating. He gave a great speech. And he's very influential, so it was pretty cool that he was there at this summit. It was black leaders, black entrepreneurs, and there was Corey, and He talked about what he did on the campaign trail with President Trump. He was kind of controversial for a while. There was some kind of pushing event or something. You know, so he had his name out there. I know his name from a number of other programs, but I know his name has been out in the, out there in the news and the media if you look him up. Really great speaker. I was really excited to meet him.
His claim to fame was having pushed a female journalist, and then that got blown up into a massive thing, and so he sort of stepped to the side for a while. But when he was talking, what was it that he was saying?
Well, he was talking about a little bit about his experience working with President Trump on the campaign trail, but he most of his comments were directed to the audience who were there to talk about entrepreneurship and free market enterprise and those kinds of things and how they can get involved with the Trump administration, because that's really important, for small businesses. So basically, he was talking about what he shares with President Trump and with the audience, which is kind of a small business mindset. How they have to make payroll, and these are things that big corporations don't always have to worry about, and that he himself, Corey, and President Trump and the people in the audience would have had to, at some point, consider whether they would pay themselves or not pay themselves, because they have to face paying, their employees, just small business, things that small business people would have to deal with. And so he was encouraging them as well to, to start forming relationships so that they could, move closer, come to the table, as a way of saying, come to the table, sit down and talk about business decisions. And that President Trump was very much wanting to, increase, instead of always going to the larger corporations, he really wants to look to small business, because he is a small businessman. So that was very encouraging and inspiring to the audience. The people there were so excited to hear that message and to meet him. He had a lot of support. I mean, we couldn't even get him out of the room. The people were just clamoring to be near him and to meet him. So he's a very popular person.
Well, he must have had a hell of a message. But hey, here's something. What are two things that small businesses have to do that the United States government doesn't? Let's see. Actually meet a payroll, and number two, the most important thing is, that's right, balance the budget, because they can't spend more than they take in. Or guess what? They go out of business and they go bankrupt. Oh, too bad small businesses can't print money. Damn, how sad.
Right. And he gave the great story about the plane and the Air Force One, and he said, what small business person would ever say, let's get two of these enormously expensive planes, just to have one set on the tarmac, just in case the other one breaks down.
Right.
He said that tells you that is President Trump's mindset as a small business. And he negotiated, these prices down, and it was such a small part of the overall budget. But to him, it's very important, because that's how small business people think. And so, and I was excited about that too, to hear that, because that's part of the reason why I support President Trump and love him so much, is because I'm all about the jobs and the economic opportunities for average Americans, as opposed to, the Facebooks and the Googles, who always seem to get whatever they want. So I was inspired, and I was excited to be there with Ken too.
Well, you brought up
good friend Ken.
Google and Facebook. Yeah, they get everything they wanted. I'm sure everyone remembers the photograph of Barack Obama and a good number of his people in the cabinet sitting with basically all the big lefties in media and social media, because that was his gig. That's what Obama was here to do, to make sure that they were going to continue to carry his water, which, of course, they did, and they're doing now. Did you meet anybody else there besides Corey Lewandowski?
Well, some of the other attendees, and I didn't know all of the different names. There were a couple of celebrities there, but darn it, Do I not? I don't know my celebrities very well.
Oh.
But there was Michael Brown, right? He was a DC assemblyman, I think.
Okay.
And of course, Ken was my rock star, and Reynard, who put the event on, who did a great job. He's hilarious. He should be a stand-up comedian. And let's see. Oh, there were some very nice men from Alabama who came in just to support Reynard. There was a very tall woman who was a basketball player. And I put a photo of her on my Facebook page. She must have been 7 feet tall.
Holy crap!
She was so these kinds of people. No, I met some guys at the bar from Kiwi. They were fascinating. They were soccer players from Kiwi.
Oh, okay. You opened up the door. I'm going to walk through it. Did you or did you not ask me when you said, "Hey, are you interested in chatting?" And I said, "Yeah, come on the show." Yeah. Did you or did you not say that you wanted to talk about whiskey? And you just opened it. You opened that door, and I walked through.
Right. I was thinking, what can I talk to you about? I'm either talking to you about politics, belly dancing, whiskey, or Steve Bannon. Oh, or our OODA loops. Those are the topics. Of course, I want to talk about whiskey. Always.
Okay, all right. Anything new on the whiskey front? Who says that you can't come to the Saloon, of course, and hear about whiskey? Saloon, whiskey, get it? Of course, everybody does.
Right. So what I wanted to talk to you about the most was I wanted to talk to you about what Ken's doing. Awesome, great stuff, and I'm really proud of him and his media that he's working on. So and that I was in D.C., but I went to Kelly's, which is next door to the Phoenix Hotel, which is where the event was. So Kelly's, have you ever been there before? It's the one with all the police badges all over the place.
No, I worked in D.C. for a little bit. I worked for WMFO, and I really at the time I didn't have the time to do any walking around or drinking or anything, even though I was many, many years younger. By the way, if you work for the FBI, the WMFO is the Washington Metro Field Office of the FBI, which is basically the second largest building in the FBI chain.
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to have to meet in D.C., and I want to take you to Kelly's because it's where I usually end up. Through the many years I've been going to D.C., I seem to always end up at Kelly's for one reason or another, whatever. But it's an awesome place, and there's just a wall of whiskey, and it's awesome because it's next to the Dubliner, which has all the beers and stuff. But whatever, like if you're really Irish, you're going to go to where the whiskey is. So, but I had a Tullamore, which is what I drink usually when I don't know what I want to do. So, and that was awesome, and I met some fun people, and I'd made the comment on my Facebook page: you can walk into an Irish pub without any friends, but you never walk out of a Irish pub without any friends.
Okay, there you go. Now that's quite insightful.
You always have fun there.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah,
that's very good.
Yeah. So, and thank you. Yeah. So, but I'm glad. Yeah, I'm glad to talk to you because I always want to chat with you.
Did you have an article that came out recently that I think I was supposed to ask you about, but we never got to?
Oh, yeah, we were going to talk about, a couple of weeks ago, I had an article about a representative in Oklahoma who had made the comment on Facebook that if the Confederate monuments were going to be taken down, then he felt that mosques needed to be taken down. And he had made a comment on Facebook, I think, and then so someone wrote about it. They didn't interview him. Someone wrote about it and made the comment that he, out of the blue, had called for mosques to be closed down. And so that was making the social media rounds. When I saw that, I thought, I'm going to call him and I'm going to ask him about this. And that was the article that I wrote that was in Big League Politics a few weeks ago when we were going to talk about that. And then something came up. I forgot what it was.
Yeah, it was
but
probably,
I had an article come out today, too.
It was probably me. It was probably my fault, and it probably had something to do with technology that I screwed up.
Okay.
So pretty much.
Well, that sounds good. We should run with that then.
Yeah, pretty much. It's all going to be my fault anyway. It's my show, my fault. That's how it goes. So when you talk to this guy, what did he say?
So when I called him and I asked him, hey, do you have a statement about this? And he said, yes. He said, this is my statement. Basically, he said the media just writes whatever they want to write.
Okay.
It's basically their commentary, their opinion, and then somebody else will pick it up and write it as if it's news. It's someone else's opinion. He said, nobody ever called me to ask me what my statement was. And he said, I want to specify to you that what I said was, if monuments have to come down, then mosques should have to come down. And he was a veteran, or he is a veteran. He served, and he had, logic and a reasoned, well thought out reason why he felt this way. And it was, he said, if these things trigger, if Confederate monuments trigger citizens and can trigger leftists, then why do we not have the conversation that mosques could trigger veterans? And so I chatted with him for a while. Really great, nice guy from Oklahoma, and he really opened my eyes to the idea of, oh yeah, why don't we talk about that? That mosques, one of the points that he made was these are military compounds in Afghanistan where we served. We had special rules of engagement around these military compounds. Now we come back here and we have these military compounds. So why are we not talking about what kinds of things that could trigger in veterans who are suffering from post-traumatic stress, who might have been attacked from a mosque? And I said, oh my gosh, I don't know. And so he actually turned me on to another guy who has a website called Understanding the Threat, and I interviewed him as well for a couple of hours. He gave me a ton of information. So that was something that if you ever want to talk in depth about that, because he gave me it was like drinking from a fire hose. I had to call him back a couple times and say, okay, let's start all over again. And something that you would be very interested in, the guy who is the Understanding the Threat, he talks a lot about the red-green axis,
okay,
which is basically the communist movement meets the Saul Alinsky movement in the United States, and how Antifa and Islam are working together to bring down the United States, and that we're actually his idea is that and this representative and this guy who has a website, they're connected. They work together a lot, and it's kind of their idea that we're in the last stages of this takeover by Islam, and that it goes all the way through McMaster and Kelly and the war in Afghanistan. And they pointed me in the direction of a lawsuit that was filed back in, I don't know, the 90s. And that was the foundation for a lot of their beliefs, this representative and this webmaster. A lot of their ideas on Islam, how Islam is building mosques in the United States and what they plan to do with it, how they plan to take over our government and our system through Sharia law, etc. So it was just like I made one phone call about this to this particular representative, and it just went into this week-long. I mean, I could just keep talking to you about it and pointing you where they pointed me, to show you the lawsuit.
Right.
And it was like Mueller, McMaster, all of these names that we keep running into currently, who were the problem covering up this lawsuit, we're having problems with now, right? What we call the deep state. And that was kind of an Alice in Wonderland week for me, following those two stories. But it started with that one. If Confederate monuments trigger leftists, do mosques trigger veterans?
Well, that was one small element of it that apparently you wrote about. But I have to ask you this, since you opened the door, you're talking about the lawsuit, and you're indicating how all of these things tend to dovetail together. Do you plan on writing another article about all of the information? In other words, you walked through a door and you were expecting to go one way, and then the next door you walk through, this massive coliseum is before you. So do you plan to take some of that information and write another article, if nothing else, about the lawsuit and how maybe all of this is linked?
Yeah, so I have been working on the article about McMaster and the Understanding the Threat. And so who's publishing my articles is Patrick Howley over at Big League Politics.
Okay.
And he's awesome. He's I can't even believe that he would actually take the time to read anything that I wrote. Like, his level of cred blows me away. And then he has a writer, Cassandra Fairbanks, and she's amazing, and she has a really big following. And then, they have, like real writers, really, like, well-known people writing for this. How I ended up there, I'm not quite sure, to tell you the truth. So anyway, the article, if I could, present it to Patrick and get it worked up right. Because remember, I'm just really just a mom. So I'm just kind of a citizen journalist, citizen photographer. It's so complex. It sounds easy, like I could, to just go and write, maybe for people like you. But what happens to me is I get overwhelmed. There's so much. Like, how do I make sense of this? I wish I could write like the guy with the normals. I wish I could write like that and make it interesting. But I'm trying. So the bottom line is I'm trying, and hopefully if I can get it up to the level of what Patrick would have over there, he might put it up, hopefully.
Well, I'd like to hear about it. Now, I guess I know for a fact Dave Milner knows this particular name that I'm going to throw out. Peter Townsend. Dave, I'm sure you know who that guy is. And maybe
from who?
His name is Peter Townsend, and he writes about Islam.
Oh, right. Yes, of course. From he's got a group. Okay, I know who he is. Mm-hmm.
And he's written a couple of books, and I'm sort of attempting to get back and forth to him out of the blue. Now, I sent him some tweets. And I follow him. He didn't follow me. And I've offered to say, and he sort of ignored me. And I've said, I'd love to have you on the show. And then all of a sudden, 2 days ago, Peter Townsend follows me on Twitter.
Exciting.
I don't get it. So anyway, I sent him a message. So I'm waiting to see if perhaps I can get him on the show. And we can talk about some of his books and some of the things that are going on in Islam, because there's so much going on these days. You cannot afford in today's society to wear blinders with regards to all of the things that are occurring around us every day. Now, you mentioned something very interesting, and I'm going to have to pick this up, and this might be sort of the semi-last thing that we talk about tonight. And folks, if you don't know, we're talking to Carrie Baxter Donovan from the East Coast, and I quantify her as the East Coast political goddess because SHR has used her talents before to weigh in on various political activities that have occurred in the past. And we're talking to her about all things, well, what the hell, whiskey and otherwise. But you mentioned something that I think is, these days, extremely important. You talked about a citizen journalist. And I might submit to you that a lot of the things that are coming from, quote, citizen journalists are have every bit the veracity that major entities have. Like the Washington Post, where was it? There was an article from the Washington Post, and it was about Trump and advertising and Facebook and Twitter, and the Washington Post got it absolutely all wrong, and they continue to get it all wrong. And the people that are getting things right, and this is why journalists are, A, they're fake news, B, they hate to be called fake news, but finally it's getting to the point where we're calling them out because we're not taking their bullshit anymore. You're a citizen journalist, and you're getting your things published. I just started a blog in 2004, and I'm getting my stuff out. Now I've got a radio show. Anybody, as long as you're getting the information out, if you're armed with a pen, if you're armed with a reporter's notebook, if you've got a cell phone, if you've got a GoPro, and you're attending something,
absolutely,
you can be a journalist, and that's what what I call the American media maggots. You're what
Absolutely.
they hate.
And
they hate you.
Right. They do hate me. They do hate me. And I think that, I've been talking about the power of citizen journalism for a long time, back since, we talked about this, I think, too, a while ago, Andrew Breitbart, who that was really, he was the one who really helped me cement those ideas of going from blogging or commenting on a message board, for example, on Free Republic, this is where that conversation came from going from message boards such as Free Republic at the time back in the Bush election, Bush-Gore, to what is called a citizen journalist. And that's what I really want to do, is encourage other people. Because, listen, I'm dyslexic. I don't think I'm really a great writer. I know a lot of things. I've been microblogging forever. I'm kind of sarcastic, and I've got a sense of humor. But I'm not a great writer. And there are people out there who really are great writers, who could be great investigative reporters. A phone, a GoPro. Tim Pool talks a lot about the tools that he uses to make videos. And there are a lot of people who are giving this information out for free. And I think it's very, very important, going back to what Andrew Breitbart was talking about, to expose the media, to expose the corruption. We need citizen journalists all over. So, yes, to encourage other people. Everyone can do something, like a radio program. If you don't have a great voice, then do blogging. If you don't have the ability to do that, then write letters to the editor in papers where that things will start to get out. Use your Facebook, use your social media. So that's really what I think that I'm good at and what I can bring to the table, because I'm not a great writer. I need a lot of help. And I say I put the sexy in dyslexia because I'm also dyslexic.
Well, Carrie Baxter Donovan,
it's really bad.
Will you come back again sometime?
Yes, I'd love to. I love chatting with you.
Okay,
Mary,
let's do it.
Thank you for this opportunity.
Folks,
Great.
you were listening to Carrie Baxter Donovan here on the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon. It's been a night. It's been a great show. Thank you, Carrie, for showing up. And unfortunately...
So much.
Monsieur! Has been locked!
We will meet again. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, thank you for listening to the Bloviating Zeppelin's Berserk Bobcat Saloon here on the SHR Media Network. You want to contact me, you'll find me on Twitter at bzep, on my blog at bloviatingzeppelin.net, Facebook, Bloviating Zeppelin, and you can send me an email, bz@shrmedia.com. My original music is by Possessed Tranquility. You can find them at reverbnation.com. My promotional consideration is by Lockheed Martin Skunkworks and the Boeing Company, because if it ain't Boeing, I ain't going. And my newest, Pratt & Whitney engines, because they have thrust you can trust. Thanks to my personal KC-135 Kettle One refueling team, and thank the Underground Professor, Dr. Michael Jones, and Carrie Baxter Donovan. Thank you for listening. Thank you for listening live. Thank you for listening in podcast, being involved in the chat room. So I tell you what, have a nice weekend. You take care. God bless. You be safe.
Everybody quiet down now and get some sleep.
Night, everybody.
Good night, Mama. Good night, Ben.
Good night, everyone. Good night, Mama. Good night, Daddy.
Good night, children. Good night, Daddy. Good night, Elizabeth.
Good night, John Boy. Good night, Jim Bob. Good night, Jim Bob.
Good night, Jim Bob.
What's going on? I was asleep. What's everybody doing?
Good night,
Jim Bob.
Good night, and good luck.